The Ramsey County Board of Commissioners meeting is now called to order. Will we please stand for the pledge? Would the clerk please call the roll? Thank you.
Yep. We can do that, Stan.
Bretham.
Here.
Castillo.
Here.
McDonough.
Here.
McGuire.
Here.
Ortega. Reinhardt.
Here.
Carter.
Here. And now we'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It is so good to be here. Welcome back, everyone. I'm going to try and chair this meeting with the face mask on my nose and steam coming up into my eyeglasses. I'm sure I'll be able to see everything. And people have been doing this on our behalf in this courtroom for quite some time. It's wonderful to be back. Let's start with our moment of meditation, acknowledging the pandemic, the social and economic distress, the issues of violence affecting individuals and families, and even reaching into our sheriff's office with a death this past week of Winston Smith at the hands of a Ramsey County and Hennepin County deputy during a fugitive task force for the U.S. Marshal's Office. We also have much, in addition to those distresses, to be thankful for. Let's acknowledge our ability to be back in the chambers with the lifting of some COVID restrictions. Let us also acknowledge coming out of pandemic and also our ongoing work to overcome injustices, our moment of meditation and mindfulness. Thank you. We have the agenda of June 8th before you for your approval. Is there a motion?
So moved, Madam Chair. Second.
Thank you for the motion and second. Are there any comments on the agenda? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Bretham.
Aye.
Castillo.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Ortega. Reinhardt.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye. And the agenda has passed. The minutes from June 1st are before you. Is there a motion and a second?
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and second. Are there any changes to the minutes or questions or comments on the minutes? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Bretham.
Aye.
Castillo.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Ortega. Reinhardt.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye. Thank you very much. The minutes are passed. And at this moment, I'm going to go to the podium. I have the honor to read a proclamation on behalf of this board and our county. And as I approach the podium, I'd ask those who are here with us to come with me to the podium so that we can all share in this moment together. Let's head there. Continuing in the spirit of honoring all in our community. And I am thankful that on this board, we have been able to lift up a process of so doing. This morning, I am honored and want to reflect on this board's desire to pass This proclamation honoring Juneteenth this year and beginning a process of honoring Juneteenth annually in Ramsey County. I read the proclamation, and then I'll call on those who are here from Black Excellence, our employee resource group, and I believe also on Zoom with us from our community as well, to say a few comments. The proclamation reads, whereas on January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which established that all enslaved people in Confederate states and against the Union shall be set free from slavery. And whereas many slave owners in the state of Texas did not release their enslaved people, on June 19, 1865, General Gordon Granger and his troops entered Galveston and officially declared the immediate release and freedom of the remainder of enslaved people who were forcefully held captive in Texas for almost 3 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued, and were finally pronounced freemen and free women. And whereas in 1866, Black freedmen organized the first celebration of Jubilee Day on June 19th, featuring music, ethnic cuisines, prayer services, and other activities. And June 19th is now recognized as a ceremonial holiday in 47 states, with Texas being the first to declare Juneteenth a state holiday in 1980. And whereas today the celebration of Juneteenth is stronger than ever before, as this celebration and commemoration is fueled by the unfortunate but extremely impactful deaths of Black Americans such as Philando Castile, George Floyd, Jamar Clark, Dante Wright, Justin Teigen, and countless more victims. And whereas we acknowledge the injustice continues beyond the establishment of laws, as does the need for all of us to continue our individual and collective work for justice. And whereas Juneteenth, as a day of committed reflection, recognizes that across people and across nations, historic and ongoing structurally embedded and government-sanctioned racial discrimination has visited and perpetuated its impacts upon all generations, including until this very day. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed, the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners directs the county manager to work with other governmental partners and with the entire Ramsey County community to develop plans to annually celebrate Juneteenth by recognizing the collective and individual efforts to realize freedom, justice, and equity for all in Ramsey County, the state of Minnesota, and throughout the United States of America. And be it further proclaimed, the Ramsey County Board of Commissioners directs the county manager to formally incorporate Juneteenth as a recognized paid holiday within Ramsey County beginning in 2022, while remaining within an overall benefit structure of 12 paid holidays per calendar year, and to join other early adopters to advocate for its adoption as an official state and national holiday. And of course, this proclamation is signed by the county board, each of us as members, and by the county manager. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present the proclamation. May I ask you, Sarah, to lead us then in the response? Thank you.
Wow, what a day. It's an honor to be here. On behalf of our Black Excellence Employee Resource Group, Madam Chair, Board of Commissioners, our county manager, it's an honor to be here today. Today we want to recognize the legacy of our ancestors, our elders, the men, women, and children and youth that have come before us and that we've lost during this time. Juneteenth commemorates that. And so I want to thank you for this honor and privilege to be here today on behalf of our Black Excellence ERG. And I want to turn it over to Mr. William Moore. He's a health educator with St. Paul Ramsey County Public Health. William?
Good morning, everybody. So to tell you a little bit about the Black Excellence EIG, this employer resource group put together by some of the amazing people behind me to create a community and a family of sorts, a support of sorts for all the African American employees of Ramsey County, to create a network of individuals who know that they can count on each other, depend on each other, and understand the shared experience that we all have as Black employees, Black and brown employees working for Ramsey County. It was an important goal of ours to get Juneteenth to be recognized as a holiday for said employees, because so many of us feel like we're still yet to be a complete part of our society as a whole as American citizens. I myself, the son of two parents who served in the United States military, used to always sit and question and talk to my parents about why we celebrated the 4th of July as our Independence Day, when it was obvious that my parents, even though they sacrificed a lot, aunts, uncles also served, sacrificed a lot for this country, but still weren't afforded the same rights as their fellow servicemen and women and fellow citizens that they walked and worked with on an everyday basis. It even made me think about the difference between assimilation and integration. In the 60s, we had the civil rights movement. It was a big deal to make sure that we integrated this country so that Black folks could have the same rights and privileges as their fellow white Americans. But the difference between assimilation and integration is assimilation means that we just mesh and meld in with the greater practices of our peers or the dominant culture in this country. True integration means that we come in with our own culture, our own practices, and those are recognized as well by our peers, just like we recognize their practices, their holidays, and the things that they hold dear to themselves. And so I think this proclamation of recognizing Juneteenth, which is widely recognized as a true independence for African Americans in this country, is a true step towards actual integration that's being started here in Ramsey County and hopefully nationwide very soon after. So with that being said, I'd like to hand it over to my compatriot, Mr. Prince Corbett, and he'll soon be recognizing and introducing Elder Mary Kay Boyd and Mr. Kevin Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Board. Thank you, County Manager O'Connor. It gives me great pleasure to introduce two of our community members who have joined Black Excellence, who are joining us via virtually Zoom today. Mr. Kevin Lindsay, the CEO of the Minnesota Humanities Center, and Elder Mary Kay Boyd, one of our community elders. And they should be coming off mute. Elder Boyd and Mr. Lindsay.
Elder Boyd, I think you're still on mute.
I don't know what the problem is.
We have you now.
You have me now?
We have you loud and clear.
Am I loud enough?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Madam Chair, Board of Commissioners, County Manager. Juneteenth is huge in the history of America. It revealed the intentional delay of freedom for slaves in Texas from 1863 to 1865. Just as into the 21st century, freedom from oppression, justice, and equality continues to be delayed and denied. For Black people in Ramsey County, this proclamation says, we see you. We acknowledge your history and the injustices placed upon you. This is not a ceremonial proclamation. It is a directive for official change to make Juneteenth a recognized day of celebration. What it says to the Black community is that Ramsey County has the will to demonstrate leadership to eradicate the hierarchy of human value by which most white-led institutions operate. This proclamation is saying to the Black community, we see you, we value you, we want to work with you and to celebrate with you. This document is a great way to begin to educate everyone in Ramsey County about why and how Juneteenth became so important to Black people. The proclamation offers an opportunity for each of us to take advantage of this moment to look back at how injustices were meted out to Black people then and how similar injustices are imposed upon Black people today. While this proclamation acknowledges the trauma and pain experienced by the Black community, it also offers hope for healing by advocating for Juneteenth to become a recognized paid holiday within Ramsey County and beyond to the state and national levels. Ramsey County has already begun the journey of undoing racism and promoting equity and justice for all who live and work within their boundaries. The reading of the proclamation today renders Ramsey County's public pledge to continue to work for justice, equity, and acceptance for all people.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Lindsay. My thanks to the Ramsey County Board, the County Manager, and the Black Excellence ERG for this opportunity to speak in behalf of the Juneteenth resolution. I also appreciated the opportunity to share the stage with my good friend, Mary Boyd. I'm always appreciative of having the opportunity to hear her. She's just such an outstanding teacher and scholar in our community. The end of the Civil War, to paraphrase President Abraham Lincoln, gave America an opportunity to be born again and fully embrace the lofty ideals within the Declaration of Independence and rid itself of its original sin. While the Civil War amendments, particularly the 13th Amendment banning chattel slavery, were passed and African Americans were elected to the United States Senate during the Reconstruction period, the new dawn for America that President Lincoln envisioned was never fully realized. 100 years later, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., standing in front of the Lincoln Memorial, implored the nation to honor its promissory note to people of color on the promises of opportunity, freedom, and justice contained in the Declaration of Independence and in the Constitution. Despite the gains achieved during the civil rights era of the 1960s, the undeniable truth is that America's check is too often still returned marked insufficient funds, as the problems of economic opportunity, education, and police brutality identified within King's March on Washington speech are still present with us today. Scholars such as Professor Michelle Alexander eloquently illuminate for us how mass incarceration has become the new Jim Crow to continue to relegate large numbers of African Americans to second-class citizenship, in which they're stripped of their basic civil rights, such as the right to vote, serve on juries, and be free from discrimination in employment and housing. The Juneteenth holiday should therefore be a reminder for us all to remain steadfast to ensure that the ancestors of our people who celebrated on June 19, 1865, are truly afforded the full promise of our nation. I therefore applaud the effort of the board to create support among governmental entities to have the Juneteenth holiday recognized as a national holiday. A national Juneteenth holiday would call upon us to collectively examine whether our Reconstruction efforts have truly been completed. Let us therefore honor our ancestors who persevered in the past. Let us also acknowledge the sacrifices of those who died on the battlefield to give us this new day. Let us respect those who have persevered and those who gave the ultimate sacrifice by committing ourselves to uplifting the Juneteenth holiday to ensure that the full promise of our nation is afforded to all.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, and our County Manager. Thank you for having us this morning. Before we read the 21 standards, we want to acknowledge our sponsors, Deputy County Manager Hedin and Deputy County Manager Karen Francois. Thank you for supporting us. So the 21 Standards is really a true gift given to us in 2008, given to the African American community by Elder Atum and Brother Giovanni Floyd. Our ERG has adopted the 21 Standards. It's what grounds us. It doesn't define us, but it is really a guiding light and a toolkit telling us what we can become when we do the work together. This morning, our co-leads, Zakaria and Lee and myself, will be sharing the 21 Standards with you. 21 Standards for a healthy African community. These are standards, values, and principles that guide the socialization and education of African children, families, and their community. Parents, grandparents, children, friends, neighbors, take responsibility for each other. If you see someone in trouble, help immediately. Help, guide, support, acknowledge, and correct every child. Greet every member of community with love and respect. Ask for help before there's a crisis. Provide help or support before being asked. Share what you know and what you've learned, that which helped you.
Acknowledge the help you have received. Celebrate each other's success. Remain connected to family and community, even when it hurts. Acknowledge and hold each other accountable to what is right and good. Inspire each other, especially children and elders. When success comes, share it. Help others succeed. When failure comes, be willing to receive support and accept responsibility. Be good to oneself in order to inspire others.
Get up, show up, and take part in building and maintaining community. Respect elders, family, and community as core to having a good life. Get education, training, and personal development. Acknowledge spirit as essential to community life and cultural heritage. Never give our children up. Never give up on our children. Those are the 21 standards. By acknowledging and reflecting on Black history like Juneteenth, we are respecting and supporting healthy Black families. By acknowledging and recognizing American history like Juneteenth, we are supporting healthy American families. This is the first step in what needs to be done to recognize this important day. Thank you.
It looks as though people are wondering who's to speak next, and so I'll take it. And just thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you for the work that you've done. I think Prince has a few parting words.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So every year we celebrate Juneteenth should remind us of the work that we must continue to do within our criminal justice systems to truly abolish slavery. Juneteenth is celebrated to recognize the emancipation and freedom of slaves. However, the 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution states neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States. In Article 1, Section 2 in the Constitution of the state of Minnesota states there shall be neither slavery nor involuntary servitude in the state otherwise than as punishment for a crime of which the party has been convicted. So by law, there are thousands of slaves incarcerated in Minnesota and millions of slaves incarcerated in the United States. Every year that we in Ramsey County and across the country honor Juneteenth, we should reflect on how we have reimagined and transformed elements of our criminal justice system that abolishes racial inequities while creating a justice system that does not criminalize Black, brown, and poor bodies. Juneteenth should be more than a celebration. It should be more than just a holiday, but should be a time to strategize on the work ahead to truly abolish the language of slavery from our current United States and Minnesota constitutions. And I would say here in Ramsey County, we are definitely leading the way in transforming and reimagining and abolishing the racial inequities that exist within our criminal justice system that still hold some individuals as slaves. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, I stand here as a member of the African American community in Ramsey County, as an individual in Ramsey County, acknowledging the great work that we are doing and the even greater work that we must continue to uplift here in Ramsey County. Acknowledging this Juneteenth proclamation and our taking on leadership and co-authorship with other early adopters to insist that a Juneteenth holiday exist in Ramsey County, in the state of Minnesota, and across the United States of America. I want to thank the members of the ERG for the brave and courageous work that you are doing in lifting up this day of commemoration, also of education and reflection. Thank you for insisting that this be brought forward and for standing with us as leaders in the tremendous work that we must do on behalf of uplifting healthy African American communities and healthy families all in Ramsey County. I thank you so much for meeting together and for blending your thoughts and for making the standards which were authored so long ago relevant here in Ramsey County as you strive to do your work on behalf of all. Thank you for bringing those standards forth here in this proclamation as we have lifted it up today, because we join you in the understanding of those standards as those which will uplift all our communities. I want to thank our guests also who are here with us for making this day important and for reading unto us your statements of that importance and also your membership on the team, not just with our employee resource group, but also with all of us in Ramsey County as we strive to uplift each member, each family, each segment of our community. Thank you all. And I believe we have a Thank you so much for those moments, and I appreciate the preparation for the proclamation and the honor that we all gave to it in spending this time together. We will move on then to our COVID update, and for that I'll call on County Manager O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. As we all get situated, I'll just note that the conversation at the policy discussion later today has an action item related to masks specifically, so we'll come back to the action piece as we go through today's agenda. We'll start with an update on vaccination rates, continued vaccination efforts within our community, and for that I will turn it over to Deputy County Manager and Public Health Director Kathy Hedin.
Thank you, County Manager. Wow, it's hard to catch your breath after that and move into COVID. Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. It is amazing to see you today in this space. I'm not going to lie, I enjoyed sitting there. But this means progress, right? We're here most of us are vaccinated. Hopefully all of us are vaccinated, and that's good news. So I'm here to give you an update. Incident Commander Laura Anderson is also here, and Medical Director Lynn Ogawa to also join me in the update today. We'll try to keep it a little shorter since we know we have a lot more to get through this morning. We will move over to the dashboard. I cannot see the screen, so we're good? Okay. All right. In Minnesota, what you will see is 602,880 people have been confirmed positive for COVID since this started last year. Unfortunately, we've lost 7,467 people to COVID-19 across the state. The good news is that number continues to slow down. As we move over to Ramsey County data, we will see 52,362 people have been confirmed positive for COVID, and unfortunately, 863 people have passed away to COVID-19. In the good news around vaccine, we have 327,321 people in Ramsey County who have received at least one dose of vaccine. That's actually over 5,500 people in the last week, so those numbers are still good. More people are continuing to get vaccinated. 287,489 people have completed their vaccine series in Ramsey County. If we scroll down a couple of slides there, you'll see that our weekly case rates continue to go down with 6.7 cases per 10,000 residents as of May 15th. The positivity rate also continues to go down. I believe last week I reported it was 4.1%. This week we are at 3.1% positivity. So that continues to be good news, and we continue to watch that as well. If we want to move over to, actually, let's skip, I'm going to work Mike over here, to the zip code map, where we'll actually see that we continue to work towards 70% of first dose vaccinations across our county system. And what you see is currently vaccination percentages range from 54% right there in the middle at 55103. You'll note one of our metrics to remove masks was 55%. I do think we'll be there by the end of this week. And then we go all the way up to 82% in different areas of our county system. As our county as a whole, we are at 73.7% of first dose for 16 plus. 12 plus is 71.6%. So we're doing well, and we continue to do well in that area. I'll actually hand it over to Incident Commander Laura Anderson, and she's going to dig into a little bit more into the vaccination numbers and talk about where we've been and how we're continuing to work with research and communications to increase our vaccination rates.
Thank you, Deputy County Manager Hadeen, Commissioner Chair Carter, and the rest of you. It's lovely again to see you in person. So I'm here to share a little bit more about our department's response, primarily around vaccine distribution. You may recall that we are just one way that our residents can receive vaccine. We probably distribute about 10% of the doses that you see among Ramsey County residents. Our primary target are individuals who are not typically connected to a healthcare system. So we're really looking to serve individuals who otherwise would not be able to obtain vaccine. If Mike could scroll down a little bit, we'll take a look at the numbers. We have distributed or vaccinated, we've given a little bit more than 51,000 doses since late December of last year at around 211 clinics. So we're still averaging 9 clinics a week. Our goals for this coming week, our goal truly is to sustain the effort. You can see, again, a decline in demand over the summer months. Our intention is to administer about 1,000 doses next week. We had the pleasure of opening a new site this past Sunday at Arlington Hills Community Center. This was a big effort. Many thanks to our partners in research as well as communications and the St. Paul School District. They helped keep our nurses busy at that site. We saw a lot of what I call first dosers at that clinic, so individuals who have not received both doses at this time. About 77% of the individuals we saw at that clinic were people of color. So that was really great to see. There's obviously a need in the neighborhood, and we're excited to commit to that and keep bringing vaccine in our St. Paul community. I think that Lynn will have a little bit more to add since she was actually at Arlington Heights on Sunday. But before I transition over to her, I just want to pull a little bit further down. Mike, if you could take a look at vaccines by race compared to population. These are numbers we've been watching for a long time now. Our goal is to eclipse or basically disproportionately offer vaccine to persons who self-report as people of color. So you can take a look within our existing clinics, about 19% of individuals we serve self-report as Hmong, Karen, Burmese, Vietnamese, Cambodian, about 19% of those seen at our clinics. That's in comparison with 15.3% of the Ramsey County population. If you look a little further down, individuals who self-report as Black, African American, East African, Somali, we currently are sitting at about 10% of all doses given. When you take a look at populations who self-report as Latino or Latina, we're at 8% of doses given as compared to 7.5% of our Ramsey County population. We're excited to see those numbers continue to increase over time. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Dr. Ogawa for a little bit more information on the vaccines we're offering.
Everybody who comes up here gets to say how nice it is to see people in person, so I get to say it again. Chair Carter, commissioners, it is really wonderful to be able to see people in person. I was present Sunday at Arlington, and it was actually fantastic. One of the biggest pieces that was wonderful was, as I was there, almost nearly everyone who came in was with their family. And so we were seeing first-time vaccinations like Incident Commander Anderson mentioned, but it was whole families. And so we knew we had been hearing from the community that some adults, some parents were waiting for their kids to be able to be vaccinated. And it truly showed us that that was what some were waiting for, and it was wonderful. What was interesting was we had to adjust rather quickly because we, of course, were used to distancing all of the waiting chairs 6 feet apart, and yet whole family members were coming in, and so we were having to quickly adjust to allow families to stay together because, again, we're trying to keep families together, and so it was comfortable for people, and it went well. The other thing that was absolutely fantastic to see, and we continue to see, is that our vaccine distribution group is, in my opinion, my humble opinion, the best in the nation for efficiency and caring and personalized intentional care for vaccine that in other situations can just become a factory or however you want to look at it. But I truly believe that everybody who came into that site and into any of our sites believes that our intention is to protect them and to care for them and to move us all towards being able to be in a group like this again. So it's really, I again encourage people who wish to, I know Commissioner Matis-Castillo has joined us and others have visited the sites. It's a wonderful place to also feel uplifted vaccine sites and to see people enjoying the relief and the excitement of being able to be present again. So that was able to happen because we have shifted to providing Pfizer as well as Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. So we now have the full gamut of options within Ramsey County. Pfizer continues to be the trickiest and the stickiest, but again, our vaccine group has shifted to allow for that to happen, to get at those populations that really need the vaccine as well. Our work isn't done at all. And so we are continuing, and we want to continue to be present in those communities that need us the most. We all know, we looked at the maps, that Ramsey County has a number of the highest zip codes with social vulnerability indexes, and we know that also being present and doing a good job and caring about those populations is what ultimately brings people in. And so we will still be there, and we will continue until our numbers are even higher, and until everyone is protected.
Madam Chair, I'll wrap up the COVID update. Thanks to everybody for their presentations today and the work that's been done to stand up different models and continue to move with partners into community to serve those zip codes, particularly that we see still the lowest vaccine rates. 54% is not good enough. 55% is not good enough, as we've talked about here many times. I just wanted to also mention on the finance side and how we executed fast. This was one of those examples where we had to use the incident management structure and emergency procurement options available under the emergency designation in a way we hadn't had to use it in a long time or in a number of months. We are also doing an evaluation with finance and with incident management team and with the emergency management Homeland Security around how to phase back the emergency period in appropriate ways that keep us with the tools we need to respond on the public health side, but also recognize we're not looking to spend the American Rescue Plan money that way. We have been moving toward a more traditional request for board action approach to that, as you've heard in the workshops. And so I just wanted to highlight that that's an ongoing piece. We had to get through today, quite frankly. Getting the board back was one step. Figuring out this mask piece has been another, but this has been on our radar, and it'll be something that we will continue to work with all of you on in the coming weeks and months. With that, we stand for any questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you all for your great reports and your great work. I really appreciate Dr. Ogawa calling out the care that all of our people use in administering the vaccine. I think that's the way we want to be, and I appreciate you calling that out, and I appreciate all the work that everyone is doing in that effort. Because you did mention all the vaccines, Dr. Ogawa, I'm just curious, how do you decide which ones to give? You know, I mean, at one point it was just whatever's the most available. Now they're all available. So is it just whatever's most convenient, or is there only one vaccine offered at each site? And do people know the difference, or they're good with any of them, is how we understand it? So thank you.
Commissioner McGuire, thanks. We do currently only offer one vaccine per site. I mentioned that it's difficult for us to transport. Pfizer specifically actually is even a different dose, and it needs to be reconstituted. And so the delivery of that vaccine is a little bit different. And so we want to be careful about confusing or having the vaccinators confused about which person's getting what vaccine. So currently, we are dedicating each site and time to one vaccine. Individuals are notified, though, ahead of time, which is going to be available. And a lot of people that we're seeing, it's kind of interesting, but they, as much as Incident Commander mentioned that we're focusing on individuals who may not have direct access to primary care, they've talked to friends, family, other providers, and they have an idea of which vaccine they want. And so they will be made aware of what's available. We're still trying to, as a whole, not recommend that people vaccine shop, though, necessarily, because they're all very good vaccines. They're all very effective, definitely nearly 100% effective at avoiding hospitalizations and death, which is our ultimate goal in medicine and in public health. And so whichever one people can get to is ideal. We are using some of them for specific situations. One example I'll speak to is that in-home vaccine, we have a number of people who it's difficult to get to them, and they also really want a one and done. And so we're utilizing Johnson & Johnson in those situations. Also within corrections, we're giving options, but we're offering people who also just want that option of one shot and being done, Johnson & Johnson, since we may not see them again.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that. Madam Chair, I have one more question, and then I'll be good. So you've all given such great reports, and the dashboard looks good, that the numbers of people being vaccinated is going up, and that's a good, and the numbers that we need to get vaccinated are going down, so the numbers are going in the right direction. Is there any certain segment of our population that we're most concerned about is not going up fast enough, or that we're most worried? I mean, I know we want to see all segments of our community vaccinated as fast as we can. So just curious if there's any, and you know, you can, it's a tough one, I know. I was just curious if there's any segment, if you feel like answering it. You don't have to answer it. I mean, we're just working on everybody. You can just say that.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
Commissioner McGuire, thanks for the question. It's a tricky question to answer because we are concerned about everyone, right? We're also concerned about the disparities that we've been talking about since the beginning of COVID, and how even access to vaccine created disparities in who's getting vaccinated and how long it's taking for people to get vaccinated. I will say, as somebody who has young siblings, young people, I'm concerned about that group of population. They're very influential. And while I've spoken about my daughter and friends who are very excited, there's still a cohort of young people who are afraid. And so we have a lot of work to do to ensure that we're also putting trusted messengers in community and connecting wherever we can with young people. To ensure that it's safe, and the alternative is COVID or hospitalization or worse, and so we continue to message the same things. But again, we are concerned about everyone in our community, and we'll continue to dive in where we see disparities in our populations.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner McGuire. Commissioner Ortega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. I have a question that might seem out of context right now, but looking down the road, so let's say down 3 months from now, how do we on the board monitor? You know, I see COVID slowly being in the past. We stopped talking about it. It doesn't become the main report for the county manager anymore, and so forth. But how do we, what are the questions, what are the numbers we should be looking at to see how we're doing come September, October? Because vaccinations are one thing, but how do we judge how we're doing as we head into the winter, which is really the danger zone, right?
Chair Carter, Commissioner Ortega, I think that's a really important question. I wish I had a full answer for you yet. I don't. In response to the pandemic, we can only respond to what we know. And thus far, we know that vaccines are very effective. We know that our goal is reduce hospitalizations and deaths. Thus far, the vaccines that we have are doing just that. However, we also know that viruses mutate, that we still have an entire segment of our population, 12 and under, who cannot be vaccinated yet. And they can be a reservoir for the virus and for mutations. I'm as happy as I am to be present and in this room with you. I'm still holding my breath for the next 2 weeks, that we see as 3 weeks, that we see as we reduce other mitigation if vaccine is going to hold us. I am especially holding my breath for fall.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Dr. Ogawa, I was going to add to this because we spend a lot of time talking about this, and I'll add the employer perspective. I think there's a couple markers. So the push to August remains very focused on what you're hearing about on vaccination today to bump rates up. So I do think there's a certain level to which into August, clearly we'll be talking particularly about these lowest census tracts and what are we seeing with our numbers, have we plateaued? And at some point it's going to become the 12 plus hopefully gets lowered again, and so you end up with your next set of challenge there. Alongside that, Labor Day tracking of case rates will be a big deal since that's what we're targeting for more employees coming back into spaces. And so I think recognizing that, and finally, it's the fall variant concern is what we're all concerned about. Everything we're designing with the idea that we just don't exactly know what happens as the world gets colder and people move inside. And that's, I mean, personally, I would say that's my biggest concern. I think I share that concern. They're all nodding. So I think those are the three areas where we're going to continue to keep the board apprised through the summer and into the fall.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Ryan? Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner, are you done?
Yeah, I do want to make sure that that's what we're hearing today. I see behavior 3 months from now as we get into other issues where it doesn't have front and center anymore. But you, as a board, we should be tracking this. So I'm asking for very simple, sort of like in your car, idiot lights, what tells you when your oil, you need an oil change, I mean, seriously. So, but I know it's complex, but I'm just putting it out there because eventually we will need, it's just human nature. We will, 3 months from now, be dealing with other issues, and we can't lose sight of this.
Thank you.
Chair Carter, Commissioner Ortega, I just wanted to share as well, we will be managing our vaccine as well as our case dashboard for many months to come. So I think we will be tracking that data and providing it to members of the public, including cases, positivity, deaths. All of that will continue to be sustained. It's important for us when we think about how we might change our behaviors or strategies in the future.
May I forward one more thing, and that is that this is what happens when you put a bunch of public health people at the front. I'll just mention flu. We've had a flu vaccine for decades, and yet we still, as public health, monitor that data, and we pay attention to it. And so I see COVID in the same way. It's true, there may not be the huge focus on it, but we're going to for a long time.
I know you're taking care of this. I want to make sure we take care of this. Thank you.
Thank you for your emphasis on metrics. I know that we have information online on our site that we continue to post that. And I appreciate your sharing that not only are we looking at just deaths or, in fact, hospitalization, but we're also looking at rates of vaccination, and we're attending to whether or not we see that opportunity for young people to be vaccinated and a number of different things. I appreciate your focusing us and making certain that we don't take our eyes off those metrics. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we are excited to be here as well and being in person, but we also have to, and I know that each of us has done this, is really looking at what does it mean. This is a step, but we are far from being through this. And the vaccinations and the choosing to wear a mask when you are in a large setting or, whatever it may be, is something that's going to be incredibly important as we move forward. And I know that the kids really, I think, probably care in some ways more, especially under 12, because they see that everybody else is being part of something, and they want to make sure that it's not something that is, I forgot what you called it, but basically that they're the carriers. And we shouldn't underestimate the power of the children when they are looking and seeing what's happening, especially with their grandparents or great-grandparents. And so this is a heavy burden, and it doesn't matter how old you are. And it's one to take on in a very responsible way. And the one thing that it is not is a political issue. Wearing a mask, keeping people safe, getting vaccinated, all these things, this is about loving your neighbor, loving yourself, loving your neighbor. It's that simple. And so it's still disconcerting at times when people try to make it into something that's a political statement when it is not. It's about life and respecting people and their lives. So I do have one question. I know that, there's now already talk about, okay, are you going to have booster shots? And how long does the vaccine last? And all these different questions. And I hope that as we know more, you'll be able to give us information on that. But being realistic, how many vaccinations do you not get a booster shot for? I mean, our kids and grandkids and others know that, and even, tetanus, and, I mean, there are certain things that you get booster shots for, so I'm not gonna be surprised if that happens here, and nor do I think that it's a bad thing. I think that whatever we need to do to keep our country safe, our loved ones safe, on the individual level, that's what we need to do to move us forward. So it's great to be back here, but I also am very cognizant of the fact that we're not just back to, okay, from a year and a half ago, because of the pent-up desire to be back to normal. And again, normal wasn't equitable or good for everyone at the same time, but COVID has changed normal, period. And if we want to pretend that that isn't the case, it's pretty short-sighted. So I guess my question is, what are you thinking as far as timeline on how long the vaccine is good for? I'm just curious because I know that you don't have exact answers today.
One day I'm going to walk up here and I'm going to give you an exact date, but I don't know which date that's going to be. But actually, we keep getting very good information back on the vaccines and the efficacy. It continues to be extended, so we know that both antibodies last longer than we thought, but also not just antibodies, protection lasts longer than we initially planned. The messenger RNA and the other vaccine vehicles are showing to be very efficacious in protecting us. And so it has now been extended. We believe even the medical community really does not feel like a booster will be needed unless there are enough variants that affect the actual protein. And so thus far there are no vaccines that are recommending boosters yet. So, yeah. And yes, I will definitely give as much information as I can as we get it.
Okay.
And that is pretty amazing. As I think we had heard everything from 6 months to a year and a half. And so it is very encouraging. Thank you, Commissioner, for your question. I also want to note that a part of wearing masks is to choose to be healthy and protect others as well. And we are also recovering our ability to fight off other viruses as well. So the common cold, is certainly a danger for us, although it's not necessarily a deadly virus. We're protecting and keeping ourselves healthy on a day-to-day basis by continuing that.
Well, and Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think, because I had heard these 6 months to a year, but I think that was, if you had COVID, that the antibodies didn't necessarily protect you for a longer period of time. And that's how come I wanted to make sure that we brought out that this is different. The vaccinations have a much longer, if not, permanent, for the COVID that we're being vaccinated for right now. If there are variants, that's different.
Right.
But I wanted to make sure to point out the difference between the antibodies from having COVID and the vaccine. The vaccine efficacy is pretty amazing.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Reinhardt, I'd just like to, that actually it helps also support those individuals who have had COVID. We are still recommending that they get vaccinated.
Yes.
There's, I think, also a feeling sometimes of invincibility when you've had the infection, but we don't know the full antibody response after. And so we do know the antibody and immune response after a vaccine. So I think that's a really good point to continue to make as well, that yes, if you had COVID, you are protected for a period of time, but you still need the vaccine to be protected even more.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt, Dr. Ogawa, with that clarity. Commissioner Fretham.
I just have one question. There's been some confusion that I've heard people discussing about the submission for full authorization versus emergency use authorization. And I think some people believe that that means everyone will be eligible for the vaccine now, including those under 12. And I don't think that's the case. Could you just clarify the submission processes and timelines on full use?
Chair Carter, Commissioner Fretham, I'm going to do it in a very short manner because I've actually given the whole talks on FDA approval because it's quite complex. For this vaccine right now, I like to think of it as packages of approval. So for COVID vaccine, initially the package of approval was emergency use authorization only, and it was for 18 and over or 16 and over. Now we have various packets for still emergency use authorization. So even emergency use authorization is not full FDA approval. And they are still breaking it down for emergency use authorization for each of those sections. Once you have emergency use authorization and you get more data on that age group, you can then request the FDA to give full authorization, but still only on that group. So all of the authorizations, full authorizations, will follow for each of those age groups later. So yes, what you clarify, and I think is important, is that full use authorization for Pfizer, which is likely going to come first and then Moderna will come second, will only be for 18 and over. And it has to do with, in my opinion, the due diligence that FDA is doing in following those people who have gotten the vaccine and looking for longer term effects, more side effects, things along those lines. But yes, it will go in an order like that too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate your being here to share these thoughts. I want to turn back to the county manager. I see no further questions for a wrap-up of our COVID update.
No further updates, Madam Chair.
Thank you once again for all your work and information. So we've had our COVID update, and we will move on, Commissioner Fretham, with the administrative items.
Great. I would like to move item 4, funding for information technology portfolio for 2021. Item 5, memorandum of understanding with the Center for Public Impact for the Fail Forward program. Item 6, April 2021 report of contracts, grant and revenue agreements, emergency purchases, sole source, single source purchases, and final payments. Item 7, support for nominations to National Association of Counties 2021 presidential leadership positions.
Which I'll also pull.
And item 8, cancellation of board meetings in the third quarter of 2021.
Thank you very much.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and the second. Are there comments or questions on the items not pulled? All right. And so with the exception of items number 5 and 7, which have been pulled, we have a motion and a second. And without questions or comments, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll on those items not pulled.
Fretham.
Aye.
Mattis Castillo.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye. Thank you very much. Those items have passed, and we will move on to item number 5, which is the memo of understanding with the Center for Public Impact for the Fail Forward program. I'll ask for a motion and second.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and second. I would like to call on the county manager for a brief overview of the Fail Forward program. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. It was a few months back that I had sent you an initial update about an opportunity coming from the National Association of County Administrators, working with the Aspen Institute's Center for Urban Innovation and the Center for Public Impact, related to an initiative they were calling the Fail Forward Initiative. This is the second phase of work that they began, and the attachment to the request for board action contains the report that was developed during phase 1, where they worked across the country with various entities to talk about how to develop a culture in which failure is not seen as an always bad thing, and how do you fail in ways where you actually learn, grow, and move forward as an organization. This seemed to link very well back to conversations during the board's strategic planning last January, where we talked more about our continued competency and development as an organization, how do we engage staff at all levels, and how do we not only move work here in Ramsey County, but also influence the broader ecosystem across the state and country. Through the process we've gone through, this is an opportunity now to finalize an agreement with CPI, the Center for Public Innovation, to be a part of the Fail Forward cohort. There are 4 jurisdictions. You're probably going to ask me to name them, and I can't do it off the top of my head today, but they come from all corners of the country. So one is smaller for sure. I think a few may be slightly larger. And we will have 3 teams of approximately 10 staff participating in this initiative. It is not program specific. It is about a culture of leadership development and collaboration. However, there will be specific areas in which we are focused. You can see who our project sponsors are as listed. Deputy County Manager Kathy Hadeen, working with a team that will be engaged on whole family conversations around financial assistance. It'll also tie into economic growth and community investment and housing, so Deputy County Manager Berg will be involved as well. Deputy County Manager Francois in the enterprise services area as we build up an entirely new model around these integrated service models and navigators and how do we learn and move as we move forward there. And then the third by CFO, Chief Financial Officer Alex Kutza, working with the strategic team around risk and compliance as an organization and how do we continue to become both more flexible while maintaining standards of accountability and transparency in the way we do our work. It'll be very exciting. There's a lot to it. We look forward to providing updates and learning more as we go, and I ask for the board's support.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask if the county manager would highlight this work, as it does have everything to do with building that culture of innovation that supports the kinds of changes that we have been making and will continue to based on our need to uplift our entire communities. Thank you very much. There is a motion and a second, and I will ask the clerk, is there any further discussion? If not, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Gresson?
Aye.
Mattis Castillo?
Aye.
McDonough?
Aye.
McGuire?
Aye.
Ortega?
Aye.
Reinhardt?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye. Thank you very much. On item number 7, support for nominations to the National Association of Counties Presidential Leadership Position. I'll ask for a motion and second, and there is moderate change. Thank you. Motion and second on the item. I would like to amend the item, and I'll move to, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'll just.
Commissioner McGuire.
If I could just ask, because you and I have talked about this, that we just amend my resolution for Commissioner McGuire to be Vice Chair of Healthy Counties, not Chair of Healthy Counties. I've already been Chair of Healthy
All
Counties.
right, and thank
So
you.
I'll just ask for I'll ask to remain a Vice Chair on that.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to add Vice Chair on that. So thank you for that, for
Thank you very
for pulling
much.
that and allowing us to make that amendment.
All right. I'll ask you then to make the amendment, but before we accept that amendment, I'd like to ask Commissioner Mattis Castillo also to add.
Yes, one more, 2 more slight amendments. I have in the resolved assigned to 2 committees, the Transportation and Human Services, and the Transportation should not be listed. That is Commissioner Ortega's committee. And also, I have been asked to serve as the chair of the Veterans and Military Services Committee as opposed to vice chair.
Thank you. Thank you for those 2 items. And so I will ask if, in fact, you would restate your motion, Commissioner McGuire, to include those 2 additional items. And so it would be changed to vice chair for Commissioner McGuire, and that would be vice chair of Healthy Counties.
Yes.
And a change to Commissioner Mattis Castillo, which would indicate chair of the Veterans and Military Services Committee. A second change, which would be to delete member of the Transportation Steering Committee. So those 3 items, including, of course, the first you mentioned.
And I so move that, Madam Chair.
Second.
Thank you for the motion. It's okay. That's on the amendment.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Okay, and so we have an amendment to the item, and that is those 2 changes. There's a motion and a second. No further discussion. With the clerk, please call the roll.
Gresson?
Aye.
Mattis Castillo?
Aye.
McDonough?
Aye.
McGuire?
Aye.
Ortega?
Aye.
Reinhardt?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye. Thank you, and we're back to the main motion then for the support of nominations to National Association of Counties. Is there any additional comment or question? Without such, would the clerk please call the roll on the main motion?
Gresson?
Aye.
Mattis Castillo?
Aye.
McDonough?
Aye.
McGuire?
Aye.
Ortega?
Aye.
Reinhardt?
Aye.
Carter.
Aye, thank you very much, and that motion, that item has passed. We are on to our policy item, which now is the county-wide policy regarding face coverings at county sites. I'll ask for a motion and second.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you for the motion and second. I'll turn to County Manager O'Quire for a brief overview.
Thanks, Madam Chair. From a history perspective, I think it's interesting to note that the county went to a countywide policy requiring face coverings June 22nd of 2020. So it was about a year ago. It was not as aggressive or quick as a step. I mean, it shows how we were learning about the virus as a country and had not gotten there until June. All the dates blend together. So it's been about a year. This recommended, or the requested actions here will remove the requirement that visitors to Ramsey County indoor spaces wear face coverings, except where required by federal or state guidance. At this time, I do not actually believe there is state guidance, but I do think we have federal guidance, and we want to leave open whatever could occur going forward. So we still have jail sites, the correctional facility, the care center, where masks will be required of both employees and visitors. And then secondly, we will recommend that all unvaccinated visitors to Ramsey County indoor sites continue to wear masks while inside, following the public health guidelines. As we frame it both for employees and visitors, what we try to say is the best mitigation approach is a vaccine, the next best mitigation approach is a mask, and you should think about trying to employ at least one of those depending upon your vaccination status. We will not be checking people's vaccination statuses. We are going to be signing all buildings. That process has already started. The administrative policy for employees will mirror this in terms of alleviating the requirement and moving to a recommended approach, and that will be effective as of 12:01 tonight for employees across the organization. This becomes effective immediately upon board passage.
Thank you very much. Of course, that mirrors the discussion that we just had about respecting and caring for each other with the recommendations embodied in this new policy. Is there any comment or question? Commissioner Ortega.
No, I just think it's, thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's timely because I know that in some of our facilities we have state employees and others, and there is a confusion with directives coming from different levels of government. So I think it's the appropriate thing to move forward on.
Thank you. With that, would the clerk please call the roll?
Bretham.
Aye.
Castillo.
Aye.
McDonough.
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
Reinhardt.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye. And the item passes. Thank you for the new policy, and we will continue to wear our mask. I will ask Commissioner McGuire for our legislative update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to give it. We are, it's surprising, maybe not so, that we are obviously still in a doing legislative work. They are predicting to still go into special session on the 14th, but I'll give a little update on what's going on here. So the legislators in the governor's office did not meet either of their agreed deadlines of May 28th for the state budgeting spending or June 4th deadline to deal with policy matters. Those were the hopeful deadlines. They did not make those. Some smaller, less controversial committees like the Representative Lilly's Legacy Committee did complete their work. And most of the work is unfortunately happening behind closed doors with very few scheduled hearings to learn what's going on. June 14th is the unofficially talked about day for special session so that the governor can extend his executive powers under COVID emergency. And this includes, things like being able to meet on Zoom meetings and things like that. So once those executive powers are gone, then we have to get some special dispensation to do some of the meetings that we're having. So there will be some talk about that. The fencing has come down around the Capitol, and with more people vaccinated, there will be more legislators at the Capitol than have been for the regular session, and they're thinking that they're going to use these remaining 2 weeks of June to get their work done before a shutdown. So that is the time. June 30th would be the day that if they don't have a budget by then, that state government would be shutting down, including our state parks and different state entities. The state is starting steps for a shutdown. Unfortunately, you know, this does affect employee groups and events that are going on. So we're all hoping that they actually get the budget done so there's no shutdown, but that will be determined in the next few weeks. Many COVID-related issues that government relations is watching, and I will say that we're continuing to meet. We've changed our day to Monday, and so Jenna Rourke, Melissa Finnegan, Commissioner Mattis Castillo, and myself, and then our government relations consultants of Pierre and Elizabeth are meeting regularly, continuing to meet regularly. So what we're watching in the special session, the American Rescue Plan dollars for housing, public health, bonding, and transit budgets at the Met Council. These are all still in play. New homelessness aid in the tax bill, policy issues like waivers for certain health and human services, and public safety or policy reform and eviction transition. So these issues are all still out there. So lots of work still to be done. On the federal side, we just received exciting good news last evening, which is why I'm reading this off my phone, because this is breaking news. There are several items in the House Transportation and Infrastructure Bill that belong in Ramsey County, such as the Rice Street Revitalization Project at almost $7 million, Reconnect Rondo at $5.2 million, and the Kellogg 3rd Street Bridge at $7.5 million. This is in the federal transportation and infrastructure bill. So we're very excited that we have some projects in there. The bill still has a long ways to go. This is just a first step, so I don't want to get everybody's hopes too high, but it's a really good place to be in that bill at this point. And we have Congresswoman McCollum to thank for this. She's very crucial in that bill, in that work, and we can thank her for her work in that. So they're going to continue to work on that bill this week. And we expect it to pass out of the House. So then we just have the Senate to go through. So it's good to be where we are, but there's still a ways to go. So with that, Madam Chair, just if there's any other comments that people want to make on any issues that they're working on, but just thanks to everyone for all the work they're doing.
Thank you for your report. Commissioner McDonough?
Yep. Thanks, Madam Chair. I just wanted to give a brief update on Hmong American Partnership. I think most of you have been to their site and are aware that they, received over $5 million in bonding. Had worked with St. Paul for quite a while to try to figure how to make that work, and there was just barriers that were getting in the way. We don't usually get into this kind of line of business, but they approached us, and talking to our folks, it seemed to be really important to not lose this opportunity of workforce development that they do in this investment that this will happen in our community. And so we've been working hard to try to have a technical fix so that Ramsey County can be the financer or receive the funds. Senator Pappas has been the champion in the Senate. It is in the Senate bill as a technical fix. I've had, and Jen and other folks, Alex, Ryan, we've had meetings with Representative Fu Lee and Representative Murphy on the House side, and so we're working towards a solution. The biggest issue is just getting the technical fix, because we can't do this solution if we don't have the technical fix. Our team has been working really hard to do that, and that's where there's some bump up. Some folks want the problem solved before they give us a technical fix. Other folks are saying, no, you can't, you need time to get this technical fix right and do it right. And so let's just do the fix. So, it's there. It's being worked on by really good people, but I just wanted to make sure the board kind of had a deeper understanding of where we're at, because almost every day I'm talking to somebody about trying to thread these needles here on this project.
Thank you for your engagement and regular discussion to help work through it. We do understand how important it is. Are there other comments or questions for Commissioner McGuire in addition to our report? If not, thank you very, very much for the update again. Thank you to Commissioner McDonough. We will move beyond the legislative update to our county connections. County Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As of June 7th, Penny Fauver Nelson joined Ramsey County as the new Deputy Director of Property Tax Records and Election Services. So I wanted to wish her a welcome here today. She brings a wealth of diverse professional experiences, extensive leadership experience in the areas of continuous improvement, managing through change, program management. She will be coming to us from the Minnesota Department of Revenue, where she was a state program administrator and director with the Property Tax Division. And before that, she worked in the tax business unit, acting auditor treasurer services unit lead, acting division deputy director, so all the places apparently across revenue, so she can tell us about each job. She'll have a lead role in guiding our day-to-day operations, the enterprise cashiering and receipting management system project, which you heard an update on last week, the property tax system project, and numerous modernization projects currently occurring and scheduled for a future kickoff within the department. And so I just got that great update and figured I would share with you that news coming out of IPR. Two other pieces of note. Back in May of 2019, the county board, working with the HRA tool here as an organization, passed a request for board action that allowed for the development of the corridor revitalization programs and study. You may all remember that. There were initially 5 programs or projects approved by the board at that time, but they've all kind of moved at different speeds and to fit with where they're all at. And I was just going to highlight that just this morning I got to sign the next step of the move forward on the work with both Reconnect Rondo and with Eastside Neighborhood Development Corporation. So 2 more of those projects have moved ahead. It's good to see all of them at different places. I think Rice and Larpenter was one of the 5, and I'm blanking on the other 2. I'm sorry, I can't remember them off the top of my head. But they continue to move ahead, and we continue to work with our partners. I thought I would highlight that. And then finally, as of this morning, we had more than 1,500 responses to the Flexible Workplace Employee Survey currently out. That is a massive amount of feedback, and I'm cringing at what it's going to be like to read all of it. And at the same time, I'm really excited to do that. And so today's message is on a continued push in that space. We also have focus groups happening right now, actually being led by some of our team that are engaged in specific segments of our workforce to gain deeper insight, to look at what's worked in areas where there's already been in the past what we called a telecommuting policy. But that survey is up and available now, and I really appreciate that more than 1,500 employees have taken the time to lend their voice and expertise. It's a real sign that we can do great things moving toward a new workplace environment beginning this September.
Thank you.
Thank you,
and
Madam
the
Chair.
survey is up until when?
I think it's got 1 more week, if I remember correctly. It was open for about 2 weeks, so we can then, in July and August, begin to really move into what does it say and how do we distill it together in a way to bring back and have conversations here.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Are there any questions on our county connections? I appreciate your report. And then we will move on to our outside board and committee reports. I'd just like to begin by acknowledging that board members are aware of the killing by law enforcement, actually the federal task force that we mentioned earlier, of Winston Smith in Minneapolis that involved, together with a Hennepin County deputy, a Hennepin County Sheriff's deputy, also a Ramsey County Sheriff's deputy. With chagrin that this has happened in our community, we know that there is much yet to come from the BCA investigation that is in process. We have received, through press information from our sheriff, information acknowledging that a Ramsey County deputy was involved, some of the circumstances of the shooting, scant circumstances indeed at this point, and also in a second communication, or a third communication, I believe, that we received as a board, sharing concern and confusion around the reason for the very unfortunate lack of body-worn camera in that circumstance. Our sheriff has a body-worn camera policy, which, because of a lack of permission from the federal government, the U.S. Marshal's Office prohibited the wearing of a body-worn camera on that particular duty. Since the federal government has updated their policy in the past year, it has been confusing to track down exactly why that body-worn camera was missing in this circumstance, or why, in general, body-worn cameras are yet not allowed, which is what we understand here in Minnesota. We know that although we have confusion about that right now, that it is necessary in our community that we resolve that confusion, and we are in touch with our sheriff about the necessity of ensuring that here in Ramsey County, we are abiding by a policy which will require body-worn cameras as a part of the uniform. There is duty for which, when our officers are engaged, that body-worn camera is essential. And now that the federal government has updated its policy, we want to be sure that that updated policy is applied in Ramsey County and for our law enforcement officials who are doing that essential duty, whether it be on patrol, responding to calls, or engaging in federal and other task forces. You will, for sure, hear more about that, and we hope to hear from our sheriff additional information as it proceeds, and also additional information about updating our policy, which should come before this board. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the update, and I appreciate the updates that have been coming from our sheriff as well. It is, you know, when you think about the fact that our sheriff and other law enforcement in our area had pleaded with the federal government to do this, to allow the body-worn cameras. So it wasn't something that was just a simple, oh, that's too bad it didn't happen. I mean, it was acknowledged by our sheriff and others that this should be something that's allowed in this federal situation and in the task force. And so I'm glad that they have come to understand that. But I think it is important to note that this wasn't something that just accidentally happened. I mean, we had proactive steps had taken proactive steps to say, we need this, please allow us to do it. So I'm glad they are now, but I think it's important that we were really pushing that to begin with. And yes, there's always updates that we have to do to our own policies, but this particular one, it took someone dying for the federal government to say, yeah, I suppose body-worn cameras are okay.
I have, as yet, not completely heard that we are at a point where the body-worn camera is actually allowed. So we're still in process.
Okay.
There has been confusion. And because I lack all of the detail, I will just simply say that we need to be sure, and I appreciate that our sheriff has at this point withdrawn from participating in that federal task force because of the confusion as to whether or not it will be allowed. But it is my understanding at this point that we still do not have that permission. And so because of that our sheriff has withdrawn his deputies from participating.
Yes.
We will need to hear more from the sheriff, of course, and we'll look forward to hearing that communication. We do have a workshop scheduled, I believe, with the sheriff on the 22nd, but certainly that's farther out than we will need to continue to hear updates. So we'll rely on his continuing to share with us as this circumstance evolves. Thank you for pointing out that the request had been made.
And that was actually the primary thing that I wanted to say. And you are correct. I know that it was said that there was some confusion about it happening, but it's also, it has to happen. And the fact that the feds are now talking about that, I guess, is hopefully will be more than that. But my primary comment was really about the fact that we had taken steps prior to try and make this happen.
Yes, and it is definitely good to know that those steps were in the process of being taken repetitively. Thank you. Are there other questions on that update? I will then turn to other commissioners to get us started on commissioner updates. Please allow me to come back around at the end because there are some things I have not mentioned. I'll call for our start then on Commissioner Metis-Castillo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple updates. First, I want to say congratulations to our staff, both in property management, Gene Kruger, and our regional rail staff for an awesome Train Days event this weekend. It was very hot outside, but it was cool inside the depot, and so congratulations. And I was there early Saturday morning, and our staff was there smiling through their masks and engaging with the community, so great job. We had an event previous of reception with Amtrak on Friday, and Commissioner McGuire and Commissioner Ortega participated, and we had some other folks, partners from Congresswoman McCollum's office come through to talk about the importance of the second train and the expansion of services, as well as the increase in the second daily train to Chicago, and we're hopeful that that will pass in the bonding bill when they return to session. Also, this Wednesday, this is great news, the community of Falcon Heights is holding a celebration on Wednesday evening at 5 o'clock at the Peace Garden to rename the Larpenter Avenue to an honorary naming of Philanda Castile Memorial Avenue. This has been in work, and our Public Works Department helped with this, and the leadership, the elected officials of the city of Falcon Heights have worked really hard with community, and so there will be a celebration on Wednesday evening at 5 o'clock appropriately. And finally, last thing I would just share is that there is a new exhibit at the Como Zoo. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, we did a ribbon cutting ceremony on Thursday last week to open the new seal exhibit, and seal and sea lion. It's fantastic. But the best part of it, if you've ever been to Como, you know it gets really hot in the summer watching that performance, and now it's fully shaded, so lots of shaded area. And you know, Como Zoo is such an incredible asset, not just to St. Paul, but to our entire region. It's the only fully free zoo, and as we think about access and equity across the region, Como Zoo is that. So just encourage people to check it out and support the zoo.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Metis-Castillo. Commissioner McDonough?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Two quick updates. If you recall, last week we did action to accept the first half of our ARP money, and right after that we put over $2 million out the door to Workforce Solutions. Thursday we had a WIB meeting, and I know Commissioner Carter has been a part of the WIB for a number of years, as have I. The WIB is unique because it's in federal statute, and they actually have oversight and authority. And so that partnership is really important, and it ebbs and flows. It's a 30-member board. At one time, it was 50 members. You can manage it, how to try to keep excitement and energy levels high. But I can tell you, I've never seen this WIB this engaged as they are now, and a lot of it's got to do with Ling's leadership, and I wanted to call that out, but her whole team, in actually accomplishing and doing things and getting things done and investing in our community with the support of the deputy county manager and the county manager on these requests that come forward. But they were just so excited about that workforce money coming out of the door on the heels of the success of the CARES funding and the $15 million that we invested in the community through the community-based organizations and the strength of those partnerships that were developed then and continuing to do that. So I just wanted to report out that they're as engaged as ever, and they're appreciative of the leadership in this county all the way up to the board in our approvals of that. Well, some of you were at Train Days and others were at District 10. I was on a 3.5-hour AMC jail population work group. I think many of you know. One of the impacts of COVID, our jails population in many cases was 50% or even less, almost immediately. And, you know, there was a lot of questions about, you know, how do we not lose that, right? that says and public safety was not jeopardized one bit through all that. Nothing in the community, no crime rates didn't go up, no, it just, so, I mean, smart people right away were starting to scratch their head and say, why do we need to fill these jails back up as we get open? What did we do that actually helped us keep from putting people in jail that probably should have never been there in the first place, but our bureaucracies, our status quo. Over the years, we know we've, moved a solution for mental illness into the jails. We've moved a solution for homeless into the jails. And COVID forced us not to use the jails as that solution. We've worked on solutions for the homeless. We're working on solutions for the mentally ill that does not put them in the jail. And AMC has pulled together a work group that includes sheriffs, the bench, county attorneys, county commissioners from throughout the state. We partnered with Vera on the immigration stuff that we did here a couple years ago. They've partnered with Vera. Vera's doing some national work because nationally this occurred. And trying to not lose that. And, and we've got more work to do. My biggest fear on this is we're going to have some really strong champions in pockets in our state where our jails are going to not fill back up. And I'm going to give credit to Sheriff Leslie in Dakota County. He's the president of the Sheriff's Association. He is really leading this, and it's really good to see that leadership coming from a sheriff because we're going to need sheriffs to be a part of this. And so, but I think we're also seeing jails filling up, and we're seeing resistance. We're seeing folks that, this is the way we've always done things. And which is not surprising in the public safety world. And so my hope here is, the partnerships we have with the county attorney's office, working with the sheriff, working with corrections, that we're not one of those counties or pockets that all of a sudden one day we turn around and we've got over 400 people in our jail again. And we can manage to keep that down to 200 or even less. So AMC's doing some great work, bringing some great people in to help partner, coming up with some great solutions, but it's going to be up to local counties and sheriffs and county attorneys to really make that work within their counties. And, I'm confident that Ramsey County wants to be one of those counties where we're not filling our jail back up and we're finding the right solutions for folks that might need support and it shouldn't be a public safety correctional approach. And that's why I wanted to bring that up, because I think we need to, as AMC, we can't just depend on this work group that AMC is going to do for all the solutions. We need to be working, we have the board bench group. The judges are a big part of this. We've got some strong leadership from the judges in this work group, and the judges really see the benefit of that. And I think that's going to be important too. They're an important piece to that. But at some point, I think we're going to need to be a little bit more deliberate in our county to making sure that that doesn't happen. We may not need to create another table, but we may need to put this on the plate of a table that's already meeting to make sure that we're paying attention to that and that we're actually doing the best job we can in that.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much for all of your updates, including to remind us of the essential uplifting of the work that we saw possible during COVID to address this issue in our justice system. Let's see. Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner McDonough, for that work on the jail population. I think that's really important. And with the WIB, I just want to say we're getting kudos from our community members who serve on these boards. I have a member of my community that serves on the WIB board, and she's very excited to be there and excited for the work that's being done on our citizen advisory councils. I know we're doing some good work with those. Mindy Greiling serves on our mental health advisory. She gave us a great compliment in a public meeting the other day and just thanked us for our work moving forward. She knows that we're continuing to need to do the best work we can to making sure that our advisory councils are really listening to the community and doing the best work that we can do, and she's grateful for our efforts in moving forward in that. So just thanks to all of our staff who are doing great work. It was great to be at Amtrak and meeting those. Thanks so much for the invitation on that. District 10 did have their meeting. Commissioner Carter gave a great report, a great update from our county. They'd asked us several questions about how we're managing with COVID and how we're moving forward with what our challenges are. And it was a great meeting. A number of us were there. Commissioner Castillo, Reinhardt, I know a number, and Commissioner Carter, a lot of people were busy, but it was a great meeting, and we're gonna talk about moving the meeting. We've always met at the AMC building, and I think now we're gonna meet from different counties in the metro area. It's how they do it in the rural county, in the rural districts. They switch the meeting around on a rotation basis. So I believe that AMC District 10, which is our metro counties, are gonna do the same thing. So that'll be good. And we're working on housing issues, and we're really grateful for that. We had great reports on that, and we're going to continue that work in the next group of meetings, in our fall conference meetings too. So I know I invite any of my colleagues to talk more about the meeting, but it was a great meeting. Just to let you know, MELSA's meeting, we're doing strategic planning. I think a number of us are on a number of boards doing strategic planning, which we're required to do by the state, which is a good thing, I guess. I mean, I know. And it takes a lot of work, but I think it's really good to set the movement forward for these boards. So MELSA is our regional library system board, and so we're moving forward on that. Just want to say that our communities are continuing to do great work, and Roseville just hired an equity and inclusion officer, Thomas Brooks, and I heard him speak yesterday. He's been there 6 weeks. Oh my goodness, he's great. He's a powerhouse, and I, of course, encouraged him to be working with our people, and he's very excited to be doing that. So our communities are coming along. We have a lot of work to do in all of our communities, but they're getting a good start in Roseville, I know, with their hiring of this very, very capable young man. So thank you, Madam Chair, for that.
Thank you very much, Commissioner McGuire. Commissioner Ortega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to elaborate a little more on train days. I was there, I think it was Friday or whenever it was, and then Sunday, we had over 3,000 folks show up on Friday. Wow. Gene tells me the numbers will probably go up to 4,000, but I left after a while. But I got to tell you, it just shows the pent-up energy that our community has. There were a lot of kids all over the place. As a matter of fact, I was online with Victoria's granddaughter to get on the train. And first thing, she has red hair just like you had when you first came on this board. I didn't recognize her. She's grown up so big. I see her faithfully there at train days every year. But anyway, we're going to have 2 trains coming for the holidays. This is the second locomotive that was renovated, and there will be 2 trains. And, those tickets go, they go quick. So folks were already asking me if they could buy tickets for Christmas. So it just goes to show you it's become a real family event if folks are looking forward to it. So it was a great job by the staff and everybody there. Really good to see people out and enjoying themselves and having a good time. So that's it, a very successful weekend for train days. Thank you.
Goodness, for somewhere to go and be
Yeah.
after COVID. Thank you for that report. Commissioner Reinhardt.
Well, it's nice to follow up on Commissioner Ortega. And actually, we had planned to take both of our grandchildren to train days, although it really is Polly's. She is a transportation nut. Anything with wheels that moves, whatever, she just absolutely loves it. But my grandson had a little skateboarding accident, and so he wasn't able to be there. So JP took Polly, and she absolutely loved it. All she could talk about when she got back was how much fun she had and enjoyed it. I also attended the AMC District 10 meeting, and there was so much going on, and we had to try to spread out as much as we could so that we had things covered. So I appreciate the folks that were able to cover some of the other things as well, and I know Commissioner McDonough with a 3.5-hour meeting that was scheduled at the same time. That's obviously very, very important work. So we're able to cover everything, I think. And I guess actually there have been a couple of things that have been going on, but we still have more coming up. So the Rush Line open houses, virtual open houses took place last week. The environmental assessment for Rush Line, which is, of course, a line that is really going to be incredibly important for not just people getting to and from work, but educational opportunities. The number of healthcare facilities are along that line. There's so much that is going to be beneficial to this that we want to make sure that people have input on the little things. As we get closer to it, transitioning to Metro Transit or Metro Council, we want to make sure that we're hearing the voices of the community. We have one in-person open house for Rush Line that's coming up on June 17th. So a little ways out, but I wanted to make sure people got it on their agenda if they would like to come to that. And that's from, I believe, 3 to 7:30, it looks like. And you can double check the website on that as well. We also have had meetings regarding the 2022-2023 budget and having community conversations on the budget. And we have two that are coming up on the 10th of June, one from 9 to 10:30 a.m. and the other from 1 to 2:30 p.m. And those are virtual conversations. I know that we've had a good turnout at the first one and getting information. Actually, that was one of the things that was noted at the AMC District 10 was usually when we would have open houses or community conversations or things where we wanted to bring people in and talk to them in person, because that's the way we did it. We would get, if we were lucky, we would get 20 or 30, and that would usually just mean that it was more controversial. But just trying to get input on something that we're trying to form is so important. And so for that type of an open house, we usually didn't get very many at all. And now with the virtual opportunities for folks, getting 100 or more people, which we have as well, and having that it be very respectful and getting that information. We still get things in writing. We still get, there are many different avenues, no matter what it is, we want to talk about. But at AMC, I thought it was interesting because we've noticed that here. But to say that part of this, we've learned lessons, some of them more difficult than others, but we also know that if we don't have to worry, if somebody doesn't have to worry about the weather, if they don't have to worry about childcare, paying for parking, the environmental side of not having as many vehicles out on the road and public works, I mean, everything is impacted by that, that it really makes the participation a lot easier for folks, and they feel heard, which is what we want. That's why we have these events. So stating that, the virtual setting is not something that is probably going to go away, but we have to learn how and when it is good to have something that is, virtual in one setting and in person in another, similar to what we're doing with Rush Line. So that is all I have, Madam Chair.
And thank you very, very much. Commissioner Fretham?
Thank you. Well, the community budget conversation and AMC District 10 have been covered, so just good meetings, glad to be there. I want to give a big thank you to Carrie Collins. She visited the city of Venice Heights at their city council meeting last week, and I was able to join her for discussion about the HRA levy. Lots of great questions from the community, wanting to make sure that the money that residents of Venice Heights put in to any levy gets returned back to the community and really helps them build the affordability and housing options in their community. Also a good conversation about park safety and how do we ensure that our residents are able to use our park safely and feel comfortable there. I was able to take part in the Head Start picnic with CAP-RW on Saturday. It was very hot, but staff did a great job trying to pull together some fun things for kids. So that was fun to get out there with the staff and take a tour of the Head Start facility in the Midway. And then finally, just noting that I've been having a lot of conversations with constituents in the last couple of weeks, but also long-term about pedestrian safety and access on our county roads, especially our roads around our lakes. In District 1, we do have 3 corridor studies this year around Lake Johanna Boulevard in Arden Hills, Victoria in Roseville and Shoreview that runs along Lake Owasso, and the area around Vadnais Lake. We're also doing work, and we had a community conversation about changes to South Shore Boulevard, and that's moving forward. And there's lots of interest in changes to the roads around Bald Eagle Lake and White Bear Township. So as we continue to think about how do we make our roads safe for pedestrians and alternative forms of transit, and make sure that they're being used as well as they can and being respectful of the community around them. This is becoming more and more an issue as I get an email about new roads that should be included in this list pretty much every month. So looking forward to talking more about that as we come out of COVID and have recognized the importance of being able to walk in our community and be out and about.
Thank you also. Commissioner Reinhardt has another.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I was remiss in not talking about the fact that North St. Paul City Council did meet and have decided that at this point they are not going to go forward, but that they will hold that option open into the future. There were a few things, and Carrie Collins and Josh Olsen have been just absolutely amazing in the work that they've been doing. But I do want to note that a few of the things that were said at the meeting were not accurate, saying that that everything has to be done on an annual basis, because as we know, any project is not going to say, gee, I think I'll start on January 1st and end on December 31st. That's not the way life goes. So the fact that it was on an annual basis was something that I would have corrected if I'd had the opportunity, but wasn't able to. And the other thing is the 50-50 split. I know the Commission will be dealing with that issue, just as we did or do with the Environmental Response Fund. And the fact of the matter is, it's not always exactly 50-50, and it's not always, clearly it isn't on an annual basis. And so, but we have a commitment that we're going to make sure that it is used and modeled after the Environmental Response Fund as we possibly can. So those were a couple of things that I would have, if I'd had the opportunity, to correct, because I was feeling a little frustrated because they were, making decisions based on information that was not quite accurate. There was, a lot of discussion about how this money is going to be used, and it's regardless if it's in North St. Paul or it's in other suburbs. I think St. Paul has a pretty good handle on how they want to work hand in hand with us, but this is such an important step for us. And the communities, especially when it comes to naturally occurring affordable housing, is going to be critical. And I do know that Carrie Collins is going out to other communities, Maplewood, White Bear Lake in my district, and obviously she's been at the North St. Paul City Council as well. But I apologize for taking extra time here, but a pretty important step. But I think we're in a good spot for the HRA and trying to do what we can, especially when you think about it. This is something that would not be, the funds would not be available until 2023, and we're in a crisis right now.
Right. Thank you very much. It was appropriate that you circled back around to do that.
And while we're circling
And with
back-
that, Commissioner McGuire.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was remiss in just letting people know that the Ramsey County League of Local Governments is meeting this Friday, and this is something that, even though I'm the designated rep on there, but all of us are always invited to these meetings, and they've been just great meetings. We're focusing on mental health as one of our collective action groups. This week we heard a great presentation from the embedded social worker in Maplewood last time, and Commissioner Mascastillo and Commissioner Reinhardt were on the meeting. But this week, this Friday, they're doing a public safety panel discussion. So we've got a commander from the Sheriff's Department, and then we've got 3 police chiefs from the community who are going to be speaking on public safety. And so, you know, we know this is a huge issue in our communities. So that's at 7:30 on Friday morning. There's Zoom call information. You should all have received the information. If you don't have it, you can let me know. But that's this Friday morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. But the league is just doing great work. I mean, they're just moving forward and reinventing themselves as a much more relevant, I think, organization that really serves all of us, serves all the communities and the county. Thank you very much.
Did I see your hand, Commissioner Frethel? Okay.
No, I just
I guess I'm just wondering if everybody's going to come
You're
back.
just imagining that all of us want to do round two.
Well, you know, it's different when you're actually looking at faces here.
Exactly, yeah.
So thank you all for your reports. I want to share just a couple of things. Appreciation to Commissioner McGuire for chairing our board meeting last week, and to all of you for indulging me to participate in a National Association of Counties sponsored trip to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Greenwood Wall Street decimation. It was a good trip. You know, I can't say it was fun to hear up close and personal about the devastation of one of the African American communities, which during Jim Crow received this sort of treatment. It certainly was one of the most horrendous of the circumstances that happened across the country, but not the only. You know, I do want to highlight that there were 300 people killed during the incident, 1,200 homes burned, 10,000 people left homeless, that those individuals, none, not one, except for a claim for guns, had their insurance claims honored. So all of these homes, all of these businesses, I hope I mentioned 600 businesses were destroyed at that time. It was not just a street. You know, it was a community that was a thriving and vibrant African American community, founded there in Indian territory and prosperous until that time. And even after that time, rebuilt by those people who had not received their insurance claims, who have yet to be rewarded or awarded any recompense from that occurrence. It was rebuilt and was a thriving Wall Street until the 60s in urban renewal and so many improvements that in fact once again destroyed that community. Again, it is one of a number of communities, and although the history has been hidden, you know, we can uncover some of it, such as this story. You know, a Google on massacres in the United States will show you a number that have happened. It is the kind of ongoing discrimination, even terrorism, and has the semblance of being even government-sponsored against the people. And so the conference that was NACO-sponsored, at which my attendance was NACO-sponsored, along with others from the National Association of Counties, was really focused on what we can do to rebuild. You know, what can we do to create economic empowerment in a circumstance where we know that the wealth of generations has been taken from individuals, and the inability to pass that wealth on, you know, has such an impact even on health and well-being of individuals. What can we do, even as government, who had a role in the destruction, to help rebuild? It was a very, very informative session. Although I can say that for the National Association of Counties part, there's no announcement of an initiative moving forward. There is great consideration of what counties can do. And I was really able to, and I was thankful to be able to share the initiatives that this board has supported, the policies that we are developing, our economic competitiveness and inclusiveness plan, our work to help rebuild wealth, whether we're talking about businesses or home ownership or jobs or inclusive economic development in this county. So it was a rich discussion, a rich opportunity to share, and I'm certain that our county will be called on to lift up some of the examples that come from our county, as well as to learn from others in coming years. So thank you again for allowing me to be absent from this table to be in attendance there. I also want to report that government and the work to continue to transform and uplift, reform, particularly in the justice system, will be alive and well into the future. I had the chance to participate with the Minnesota Urban Debate League, and young people who are being prepared to take on leadership with respect to justice system reform, along with Court of Appeals Judge Jeffrey Bryan, who came from Ramsey County and has been a part of our justice system reform efforts, along with Attorney General Keith Ellison and our county attorney, John Choi. It was a great opportunity for those young people to ask us questions, informed questions about justice system reform that we are engaging in as a board at the state level as well, and about the work that they have been doing, and to share with us some of their thoughts regarding that reform coming forward, whether it be in restorative justice or in alternatives or other forms of uplifting transformation. So that was an encouraging opportunity last Thursday with those individuals. A number of things that I participated in this week have already been mentioned, and I just want to thank all of you for all of our sharing and the opportunities to serve our community, to represent our community, and to inform our community. Thank you. I am we are at the end of our agenda and ready to adjourn our meeting. This afternoon, we have a workshop which will be virtual. There is a link on our website for our Health and Wellness Service Team workshop supporting intentional partnerships, integration of public health and social services, which will be led by Commissioner Fretham. It begins at 1:30, again by Zoom this afternoon. Thank you all. We are not prepared at this point in time to be in our workshop space. We are continuing to evolve beyond COVID. And with that, we are adjourned.
Carbon monoxide alarms protect the ones you love. Make sure they are working today. See you next time. This is Bernie Bear coming to you today from the Firehouse Kitchen. Did you know that cooking is the leading cause of fires? To prevent cooking fires, remember these 3 rules. Keep anything that can burn 3 feet away from the stove. Do not leave the kitchen when you are cooking. Stay and look when you cook. If you have a fire on your stove, cover the fire with the lid or a baking sheet. Then turn the stove off and call 911. Remember that cooking is the leading cause of fires, so do your part to prevent fires in the kitchen. See you next time. Hello everybody, this is Bernie Bear from the St. Paul Fire Department. I want to remind you about something very important, working smoke alarms. You need to have smoke alarms on every level of your home, inside each sleeping area, and outside each sleeping area. If your smoke alarm has a battery, You need to replace the battery every year. Your smoke alarms need to be replaced every 10 years. Smoke alarms protect the ones you love. Make sure they are working today. If you need to replace your smoke alarms or need additional smoke alarms, please call 651-279-5976. We can help. See you next time. Did you know that smoking is the leading cause of fatal fires? If you smoke, you need to smoke outside and away from any buildings. Make sure you extinguish your smoking materials in a metal or glass container filled partway with sand or water. Never smoke in bed or while tired. Make sure you keep lighters and matches picked up and away from children. Make sure you have working smoke alarms in your home and test them monthly. If you need to replace or get additional smoke alarms, please call 651-228-6273. We can help. See you next time.
Emerald ash borer, or EAB for short, is an invasive pest that has created an environmental crisis in St. Paul for the past 2 decades. Since EAB was first discovered in St. Paul in 2009, our professional forestry staff have been executing a management plan that focuses on the removal and replacement of public ash trees. Our staff know as well as anyone the impact that losing trees has on individuals and neighborhoods across the city. But we have reached a critical phase in the infestation. Dead and declining infested ash trees quickly dry out and become brittle, are prone to failures such as dropping limbs, and pose an increasing public safety risk. By removing these trees from the landscape, we can then work to restore the urban forest by planting a more diverse combination of species where they once stood. The City of St. Paul has chosen not to embark on a long-term treatment program for public ash trees, but individual property owners can find more information on potential treatment options for individual trees on our website. It is important to understand, however, that the vast majority of the ash trees in St. Paul are not considered viable for treatment. For more information about EAB and options property owners have to address trees on their property, please visit stpaul.gov/EAB.